Good afternoon and welcome to the Pittsburgh Land Bank Board meeting for Friday, October 7th, 2021. Sean. The first order of business is the roll call. Will the staff please call the roll?
Reverend Ricky Burgess.
Here.
Dr. Jamil Bey.
Here.
Councilman Daniel Lavelle.
Here.
Councilman Bobby Wilson.
Here.
Director Steve Mazza. Director Wanda Wilson.
Here.
And Director Karen Breen.
Here.
So we have quorum. All right, and so that brings us to public comment. Members of the public who want to address this board of directors meeting, you will be given 3 minutes. You can come at this time. Any person from the audience who wants to address the board, please, this is your moment. Your time in the sun. If not, we will move on. You have already in front of you the September 2022 minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Just because my mic was not on, and just for the record, is there anyone in the audience who wants to address the board of directors at this time? Seeing none, we will move on. You have in front of you the approval of in front of you have the September 2022 board meeting minutes. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any conversation on the minutes? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposers, nay. Thank you very much, Wanda. My brief report after today's regular business meeting, the PLB Board of Directors will be engaging in a public briefing on the takeaways and lessons learned from attending the 2022 Reclaiming Vacant Properties Conference hosted by the Center for Community Progress. The Center for Community Progress is a national leading resource for communities in urban, suburban, and rural environments to best address vacant, abandoned, and deteriorated properties for revitalization. Reminder for board meetings to please stay for the post-meeting conference. And one of our own former mayor staffers is still an integral member of that organization. All right, that takes us to the Land Bank URA staff updates.
The first update we have is we have a number of shared URA team members that work very closely with the Land Bank on our operations, and we wanted to introduce them to the public and the board of directors today. As our board of directors knows, staff does a lot of work behind the scenes that we don't necessarily see at our monthly public meetings, and a lot of this work overlaps with our team members from our affiliate, the URA. So the first one I'd like to introduce is Sushila Neimani Stainer, the URA's Deputy Executive Director. In her role at the URA, Sushila focuses on supporting and providing valuable oversight to the agency's development-related functions and affiliates. From her former role as the Allegheny Economic Development's Deputy Director, she managed project-related divisions, which includes development, business expansion and attraction, affordable housing development and planning, along with additional support over the tax diversion and abatement program unit. Sushila has a Bachelor of Arts from Mercyhurst University in Erie, Pennsylvania, and returned to the city of Pittsburgh to pursue a Master's of Public Administration from the University of Pittsburgh's Graduate School of Public and International Affairs. As a Pittsburgh native, Sushila now lives in Squirrel Hill with her family. Sushila is joining our meeting today virtually. Our next team member is Shannon Barkley, who joins the URA as our senior counsel for the legal department. Shannon is a lifelong Pittsburgher and worked her way through Duquesne University, in addition to the evening division of Duquesne University's School of Law. Shannon has unique experience in all three branches of the Pittsburgh government and has served under 4 mayor administrations. During her last 2 years at Duquesne, she became employed in the City of Pittsburgh Controller's Office and later became the assistant solicitor in the city's law department. In addition to experience in the public sector, Shannon also has experience in the private sector and served as an in-house attorney with large international corporations and has been affiliated with a local and a national law firm. She's published in 81 law journals and has received recognition for her work in the mayor's office, as well as selection as a rising star in Pennsylvania's Super Lawyers magazine. Our final team member that we'll be introducing is ML Meyer, who is the URA's Assistant Director of Real Estate Transactions. ML has been on the URA's real estate team since 2016. Before joining the URA, she spent over 30 years in the private sector and brings experience in property acquisition and disposition, project management, operations, asset management, budgeting and finance, and real estate valuation. ML has degrees in economics and finance from the University of Chicago and is a certified general appraiser in Illinois. ML grew up in Santa Barbara, California, and Bainbridge Island, Washington, with stints in Boston, Chicago, the San Francisco Bay Area, and abroad. Despite all of this, she still believes that Pittsburgh is the best place she has ever lived. Next, we're going to see a brief organizational chart that includes the transactional team, as well as the land bank and land bank staff. This is to give the board of directors and the public a better understanding of how the land bank fits into the urban redevelopment as an affiliate and how we share a number of key staff and personnel that forward the land bank's operations.
So if we can direct everyone's attention to our PowerPoint here, it's a little small, but I just wanted to give everyone an idea of, yesterday was 1 month as that I've been at the URA as the new land bank manager, and what has made this transition really smooth is the land bank is now embedded within the transactions team at the URA. So Emily and I are working under ML, who is here in the gallery this afternoon. And then we report up to Sushila. And the transactions team has, where are we here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6 or 7 members, 6, that we're meeting with several times a week. And that already have that expertise and experience on how to move property through the acquisition and disposition process, and it's very, very helpful to have that access and be able to see what the URA does and how hopefully the PLB will be able to easily piggyback on those processes as well. So that's our breakdown up there, and of course we also work closely with Damara Walker. Listening in today is also a new senior staff accountant, Candace Butler Foster, who is fairly new but will be assisting with the land bank as well. We promised her we wouldn't put her on the spot today, but we're glad she's listening in. And of course, the familiar faces that you see at our meetings, David Geiger, Matt Sanders, and the URA Development Services team, and even the PHDC at the URA, all are, I think, will be very important relationships in the coming year to begin transacting property.
Is anyone that is, of all the people you've named, is any one of them to want to make comments other than just having me introduce, particularly Shushila?
Hi there. I was trying to find my mute button and I could not. I know a lot of you and I've worked with you in the past, and I'm really looking forward to working with land bank staff and the board because I know your work, I know how engaged you are with everything else, and I've seen your passion on the board. So I'll be primarily working with the land bank board in the next few months on a work plan that's focused on administrative process, board engagement, tax and body coordination. And we hope to have some draft of a work plan for your consideration before the end of the year. And obviously we'll get your feedback on that. And it really is a structure that will give us an important framework for the board and the staff to move the goals and the mission forward. It's anticipated that the work plan will also include a potential recommendation for strategic site acquisition strategy. But we've heard that, and so we just want to make sure that we're incorporating the feedback. So the goal is that we develop this work plan for the remainder of 2022, and that we have something for the first quarter of 2023 ready to go. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think we can move on.
Well, and let me just end by saying that, of course, Emily has been a familiar face, but an absolute asset to ensure a smooth transition. So I don't think these board meetings could be happening if Emily wasn't there to guide me here. So thank you, Emily, and thank you, Karen. Take it away.
Appreciate that. Moving on to updates for the PLB and City GRB law contract. Currently, GRB Law is working to file petitions to quiet title on city-owned properties in a number of batches, called on this slide cohorts. So for the first cohort, 14 properties have received quiet title, and we're currently waiting on a 30-day appeal window. For the second cohort, service is complete, and we are waiting for respondents to file responses. For the third and fourth cohorts, petitions initiating the case have been filed. They're awaiting service. And for the fifth cohort, petitions are being filed initiating these cases.
Questions? I do have one question. How many total of all the 5 cohorts? What's the total number of properties?
We have 62 properties in this agreement. The properties are on the Land Bank's website under our resources.
Mr. Wilson.
Absolutely. So one of the key components of this agreement is that the city remains the client and the Land Bank is providing payment in the form of a donation agreement. And so city, real estate, and law departments, having done prior work on certain numbers of properties, some had title commitments, some did not. And so the city's idea to push that forward was to get them in groups of properties that were more or less ready, and they've decided to split these properties into batches. On the next slide, we see the 14 properties that have received clear title, as well as the community organizations that submitted them into the property reserve. You'll find at the bottom that this is the 30-day appeal window for responses. So in the previous mayor's administration, we had some mayoral priorities that were also put into the agreement, and these would have been priorities for the city of Pittsburgh. Any further questions?
Move on.
Moving on. The next update is updates to the amendments to the Tri-Party Cooperation Agreement.
So I spoke with our finance department this week. Our Director Gula is out of office, but we are going to speak next week about moving forward with scheduling that briefing. And I also touched base with the council president, who is also ready to make sure we get that briefing scheduled ASAP.
Any questions from the board?
The next update, our land bank.
Sorry.
Maybe just for the public, it'd be good to review what, I think in this second, like it says clearly, currently, the city can't transfer property to the PLB. So it'd be good to kind of just lay that out for the public on what's,
Absolutely.
as we work through some of these barriers.
Right, absolutely. And as a reminder to the public that is watching our meeting, these amendments to the tri-party cooperation agreement allow the land bank, the URA, and the city of Pittsburgh to engage in mutual transfers of real property. Without amendments to this agreement, the land bank is unable to access city-owned land, and therefore these amendments are imperative to the land bank's mission to not only return unproductive property, but to address the city of Pittsburgh's inventory of distressed property.
It'd also be good to clarify like how we do obtain property currently.
So we currently can't receive property from the city of Pittsburgh. And this is specifically referring to the legislation before city council.
But how do we get bogs?
Boggs is owned by the URA.
URA. So everything has to come over currently from the URA.
Correct.
All right. Just some housekeeping.
Thank you, Councilman.
Yeah, it's been on the agenda for a few months, which was why.
It's just when I
yeah,
walk out
that's a
these
good
doors, when I walk out these doors, people go, "What's going on?" That's
Yeah.
part of the whole discussion that I feel like isn't being told. So, all right, thanks.
Next, we have our property updates. The first property, 243 Meadow Street.
So we have partnered with the URA disposition team. There's a project manager that was assigned to the Urban Academy who is currently our interested buyer for this parcel. But they have other parcels that are URA owned that are going through the URA disposition process. And so we've partnered with that project manager, and we're going to be working alongside of them to determine the most appropriate timeline for disposition of this parcel. So that's playing out and in discussion, and we will have updates for the board at future meetings.
Thank you very much.
The next property, 6 Boggs Avenue in Mount Washington. The URA and land bank staff are planning to release an updated application to purchase that will be going live next week. These efforts came about from the transactions team as well as land bank staff, noticing that applications to purchase land bank property were grouped in the same application as people inquiring to purchase URA property. And we found that with these very unique and distinct land recycling organizations that do work together yet have separate missions and separate abilities, that we wanted to differentiate the land bank's process and the land bank's materials. So this application will be going live next week. We'll be communicating with all prior applicants and opening this property back up to public interest to purchase, with the intention of getting it back to productive use and back into the community.
Okay. I think that takes us to a financial report.
On the screen is the Pittsburgh Land Bank balance sheet for the end of September. On the screen is the Pittsburgh Land Bank's income statement from January to September. On the screen are the Pittsburgh Land Bank expenditures as of September 30th. On the screen is the Pittsburgh Land Bank fund balance as of September 30th. On this screen is the Urban Redevelopment Authority's bill for administrative services to the Pittsburgh Land Bank for the first 3 quarters of 2022. The board members have received this in the board packets along with the rest of the finance report to review.
So I wanted to call everyone's attention to the invoice, the final document. So we were originally going to ask the board to vote to approve this invoice today, but after working with the finance team, As you all recall, we did not have a full-time PLB manager for these quarters. And so we're working on prorating that charge, but we weren't able to have that prepared for this meeting today. So this is just kind of for your reference, but we expect updated numbers for your approval at the next board meeting.
So at this point, there's no need to approve the financial reporting. That'll happen at the next board meeting. Thank you very much. Any comments, concerns? Takes us to legislative updates.
Good afternoon, members of the Pittsburgh Land Bank Board. My name is David Geiger. I'm a senior advisor at the URA. There's no updates really on any of these bills since we last met. The House has not been in session, so Senate Bill 811 has not seen any movement, though we are optimistic that when the House comes back to session at the end of this month, that we will see movement of the bill and hopefully final passage into law. And while the Senate was in session since the last time this board convened, neither of the two House bills that are currently sitting in the Senate Appropriations Committee were reported out of it.
Okay, is there anything else? If not, that takes us to the public briefing on the takeaways from the 2022 Land Bank Conference.
I'm going to start us off with a brief summary of the conference. The Pittsburgh Land Bank was able to send a delegation of staff and board members to attend the 2022 Reclaiming Vacant Properties Conference in Chicago, Illinois. This 3-day conference gathered nonprofits, government organizations, and community development professionals to discuss best practices in the revitalization of vacant and deteriorating lots and structures. This conference was centered around the theme, Responding to Crisis, Building an Equitable and Resilient Future. The conference began with a warm welcome from Chicago's mayor, Lori Lightfoot, and was preceded by a renowned historian, scholar, and activist, Dr. Ibram X. Kendi. The Pittsburgh Land Bank was able to connect with like-minded organizations, network with other land banks, and connect with partners in and around the Pittsburgh region. On this slide, you'll see just a small number of the conference workshops, sessions, and other trainings that our staff and board members were able to attend. On this slide, you'll see one specific takeaway from a workshop that Pittsburgh Land Bank staff attended from the Detroit Land Bank.
Yeah, this was a session that really stood out to me. The Detroit Land Bank did an overview of their side lot sale program. The Detroit Land Bank acquires and sells around 200 to 300 parcels a month. And they proactively market those parcels to adjacent property owners proactively, but also after they've cleared title. They give that lot 180 days, the adjacent property owners 180 days, and from there it graduates into the neighborhood lot program, where then anyone within a few blocks is able to purchase the property with a plan for future use. So maybe you're going to do a community garden, something like that, or just want to maintain the lot. You can put in to purchase that as well. The price goes from $100 to $250. We also got to meet with the executive director and chief financial officer at a breakfast where we learned that they have the Detroit Land Bank has over 150 employees, and 40 just dedicated to legal processes alone. So I thought that was very inspirational. Really, I think we're lucky that we don't have that blight quite at that scale, but thought that the parameters of the program were very good.
One of the things, when we had the breakfast, one of the things that struck me and I'm not sure when we'll have this conversation, but I think it's a conversation as a city we have to have. In Detroit, they give no preference to anyone who buys the land. Whoever the highest, they have a auction process, and whoever is the highest bidder at the end of the auction by 5 o'clock that day gets that property, period. Although the majority of their land does go to low-income buyers, it doesn't have to. One of the things I think we're going to have to really come to grips with is that, in essence, some of the people who advocated for the land bank's existence in the beginning really were interested parties that really saw it as a vehicle to help community-based organizations. And we do want to help community-based organizations, right? We also want to help individuals. But at some point, we're going to have that conversation, right? As to what's the best use, because there's going to be a time, perhaps not, during my tenure, but there's going to be a time, especially in many of our low-income communities, that there's going to be large-scale development going on. And there's going to be, I think the choice in Larmer is one example, but I think there are going to be other examples of large-scale development in these communities where the land bank will play a part. And we're going to have to just be very thoughtful of what that appropriate part is. The URA, in choice, acted like a land bank. It bought all the properties, it assembled all the properties, it held the properties for many years until Larmer was able to get a choice application. And so the land bank, I think, is going to play that part moving forward in some areas, perhaps in Homewood, or perhaps not yet, maybe the hill's too far gone, but too far along on their choice process. But places like that where the land bank can go and hold property for development for that end use. And we're just going to have that conversation about priority in terms of land and to who, and we have that written in our charter, but I think that's going to be a continued conversation because the more land you want, because there's a tension, there's always going to be that tension, right? If you prioritize community groups, most of them do not have the resources to claim the property at that time. So you're really holding it for them for X number of time, right? And so there's going to always be a tension between wanting to clean the properties as fast as possible. That's on the Detroit side, and then maybe more Chicago side, there's going to be a tension between that and then being very thoughtful about who becomes the ultimate owner and what's the ultimate purpose of that property. There's going to be that tension. And I just want to be very honest with you. I think that's a tension we felt over the years at the land bank. I think that's a tension we're going to continue to have to juggle.
Yeah, if I can just make a comment on that. Yeah, I think what presented that, that opportunity for them to handle their properties in that way is that they were under a much more extreme amount of properties in such a dire situation. Whereas like with most other challenges with Pittsburgh, we have an opportunity to kind of be in the middle of it's not, it's bad, but we also have an opportunity to kind of weigh in and correct the system a little bit as we move along. Like correct it in a way to make it, to actually have an end product that is more equitable.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And we're looking to build pipelines, right? There's an affordable housing pipeline that the land bank can be, and then there is a pipeline to move along properties that don't fit into that affordability vision. And there's value in that movement as well. And it is good that we have the ability to be more discriminate, but find that balance appropriate for Pittsburgh.
So I think as I'm listening to the chair speak about this and imagining we're going to have some decision making.
also some where there's some neighborhood, residents and community organizations that can jump in now and save their neighborhoods. But the longer that we're a functioning land bank, we're sliding closer and closer to Detroit.
Yeah, and Dr. Bay, that's an excellent point too. This approach is going to be different in every neighborhood
So
because
not a one-size-fits-all.
Exactly, yeah. And we are really excited to have a work plan for you all in the coming months to review and really get into those details.
Yeah, because I think they work through that as they, scale it up with the staff, and they built the ship as it was sailing, and we need to. What you'll present or what we're going to talk about is, the actual workers that will be, moving things along, like other cities.
Any other conversation about the conference?
We do have one more slide that I'll just touch on really briefly, that we can also discuss further in the conference after.
All right, and this is new business. We're going to go now to new business.
So I am requesting a board approval of expenditures to attend the Homes Within Reach Conference, which will be this December 7th through 9th in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So if you look up on our slide here, we've got the cost of the conference. So I've prorated it, so if the board would prefer to just approve conference registration and lodging costs, that's just fine. Or if you'd like to approve mileage and a per diem as well. I anticipate this will be the absolute maximum cost, and the actual cost will be lower. Potentially prorating the number of nights, or there are several other organizations attending the conference as well. So I don't imagine I'll be driving there on my own. And then I have on the next slide the list of presentations. And I think what really stands out to me is that the PA Land Bank Network will be holding their annual meeting at this conference. Of course, if the board would prefer, if you'd like to approve for multiple members, we can do that as well, and just consider that a cost per person.
When is this?
December 7th through 9th.
Is that a Wednesday through Friday?
Yes.
So, have two questions. I'm just going to make some assumptions that you have discussed this through the executive director and the URA staff, all the way up, that they've approved the bringing this to the board.
We are starting with the board approval.
What month are we in?
It is October, so we'll have one other meeting between now and December.
I'd rather defer this this conversation for a month, and although we as a, what's up to the members, we have the power and the authority to approve this for you or for members. Tell and just have the conversation with the URA first. Afterwards, that we can certainly do that, or we can do it in reverse. That doesn't matter to me which one you want to do, but I do think we have to have the conversation with the URA, just so making sure that we're coordinating these conference opportunities with the URA's ongoing work. That's all. What's the pleasure? I can do either one. It doesn't matter.
Well, I think we can ask the director a simple question. She's with us. Cecilia, do you have any concerns?
This looks like a legitimate expenditure from my perspective, and it's being submitted in advance, so I appreciate that. So if the PLB board would like to consider this expenditure, I think it would be fine by me.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
So the motions I think the motion should be to approve a delegation as the board decides to go to the conference in Hershey, PA. Is there a second?
Second, but I have a question.
Okay, conversation about the motion.
Is there
Yeah, I
any,
would have discussion about the way that motion is phrased.
Yes.
I
Okay,
think
first,
we should
Mr.
just send one staff person and not a delegation until we have a budget.
So because we have the power to send a delegation doesn't mean we have to send a delegation. My motion was strategic just so, because that's the first time I heard of it. There are other staff members that we may want more than one. I don't know the answer to that question. I think we need to have a conversation about the conference and see what makes sense. I don't know what makes sense yet. And so I was giving us the maximum flexibility. That's why I was sort of thinking maybe we wanted to delay this a month so we'd have this kind of clarity. But if we're gonna pass it now, then I want the maximum amount of flexibility in talking with the URB at what makes the most sense. So, but I do hear your unreadiness, and let's continue to have a conversation. We'll see what happens. Okay?
so my question is about, is there a change in cost if we do delay the decision? Are there early bird or late registration fees?
I don't believe so. Yeah, I think that's,
Gas
385 is gonna be,
Gas
yeah.
prices, hotel,
Yeah, yeah. I think no, but I'm not aware of, that should be 385 should be, I believe the cost, even if anyone were to come that day and register. But I can double check to make sure.
So it appears as if this budget, this expense summary is for one person. So if the board wants to consider sending additional people, then it sounds like the time is on our side here, and there's another board meeting before this conference, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So this is to send one person. If additional board members would like to go, then it sounds like this could come back next board meeting for consideration.
All right. My concern really isn't the conference, it's the other thing, the Pennsylvania, the session, the
land
Pennsylvania.
bank, Association of
bank.
Land Banks.
Yeah, that's, that part is my interest, is what, if any, should be our, and I'm having these thoughts out loud during the board meeting, because these are new thoughts to me, is what should be our involvement in that association? What does that involvement look like? And at what level do we need representation? It may be we need a board member. It may not we need a board member. I just don't know. I don't have the expertise yet. So so I think I don't have a problem with that. We can just pass this for the one staff member and still have this conversation as to what that looks like moving forward. I just need to know more. I need to be better briefed on what it does and what the benefit to this board of participating would be, if any. All right, so the motion is to pay the expenses of a staff person. Looks like driving. I'm not looking, I probably should look at my packet versus trying to look at it on the screen. But I'm guessing it's,
Driving.
I'm guessing from what I can see, it's a driving trip. All right. So it's been probably moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. All right. Okay. So then, the last thing before I ask for the second area of public comment is we will be holding an off-camera board conference after this meeting. There will be no actions taken, and there will be fairly limited discussion, but there will be some information shared to the board as a group from the URA for our understanding. And so at this point, is there any other public comment? Is there any additional public comment that you've heard? I think we may be the only board in the city that offers two opportunities for the public to comment, both before and after our agenda. I think. I don't know if there's another one, but there's not one that I know of. I know URA isn't. I know the Housing Authority doesn't. I think we may be the only one. Okay. If, with that sort of curiosity, I don't see anything else to claim our attention, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting and move into our conference.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. This meeting is adjourned.